What's up, everybody? This is MDP back to do another UFC video. And this video is going to be called Francis Ngannou's new PFL deal is not a game changer. And here's why. Now, I was going to do this video before. And let me just take a minute, see how this plays out. In fact, y'all already know I got a video I did from way back saying I don't think Francis Ngannou should have left the UFC. And based on what I've heard about this new PFL deal, my stance has not changed. This deal is a whole bunch of smoke and mirrors, and I'm going to break it down for y'all. First thing, let me start off with some of the opinions I've heard from people first. We've heard DC come out and say how now MMA feels like a real sport. We've heard Israel Adesanya come out and say now the UFC is going to have to change the way it deals with fighters. And on the other side, we've heard Conor McGregor come out and say he doesn't think it's a good deal. And I actually agree with Conor McGregor. And I just today read an article about Dana White talking about the PFL deal and giving his negative thoughts on it. So I'm going to focus on Dana White for just a second because I love Dana White, but goddamn, this dude just don't know what to say out his goddamn mouth. And every time he speaks on something outside the UFC, he loses more and more credibility. Now, he said that the PFL, he don't understand how the PFL can pay Francis Ngannou to box for a year while waiting for him to make his MMA debut in 2024. Basically saying he don't see how they can pay him to box in 2023. Let me correct that, because that's bullshit. The PFL never said anywhere that they were going to pay Francis Ngannou to box. So that's just a non-starter. That's phony. I don't know why he would even say that. The PFL said they were going to be hands-off to Francis Ngannou's boxing career. That's what they said. So that doesn't lead me to believe they're going to pay him for anything until he starts fighting in 2024. So why Dana White said that, I don't know. That was stupid. It makes no sense. It's not factual. He also said that Francis Ngannou was scared to fight John Jones. That's bullshit too. Just because John Jones beat Cyril Gane, the worst wrestler in the heavyweight division, doesn't mean that things were going to play out like that with Francis Ngannou. So he needs to stop saying that shit, that Francis was scared to fight John Jones. Francis Ngannou was not scared to fight John Jones. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go back to the PFL deal. Let's start with the boxing. PFL said they're going to allow Francis Ngannou to pursue his boxing goals in 2023. Let's start with that. Who is Francis Ngannou going to box? Who is he going to box in the second half of this year? We already know Anthony Joshua said he's not going to fight him. And I'm pretty sure if Anthony Joshua said that, then Tyson Fury's probably not going to fight him. Deontay Wilder's probably not going to fight him. No top-tier fighter is going to fight Francis Ngannou. And and I'm going to tell you what, if they do end up fighting him, he's going to be such a low B-side that he's not even going to make MMA money. Or he might just make MMA money. But he's not going to make this big boxing money that he's dreaming of. It's not going to happen. So the whole boxing thing, I just don't see it happening. The crazy thing about this is, as bad as Francis Ngannou wants to box, and keep in mind, he's never boxed before. So any real fighter fighting him, it would be a gimmick fight. Also, he's going to be the B-side no matter who he fights. And they may hold out. They may just honestly make him wait so long that he ends up taking any type of offer where he's not making any money. Now, the thing is, if Francis goes out and beats an Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, then, if he beats him, then he will be able to make that big money, that big boxing money. But the chances of that happening are very, very slim. And I will give Dana White credit on this. There is no heavyweight fight that would be the same caliber as Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather. There is none. There's nobody he can fight that would be on that caliber. So I'm going to tell you honestly, I think Francis Ngannou should just give up on boxing for a minute. I think he should swallow his pride and go back to the UFC, see if there's anything they can work out, especially if John Jones retires. Right now, the UFC's heavyweight division is the hottest it's ever been. It's the most stacked it's ever been. And all of y'all who are wondering, I know people have asked me this question before and I wasn't sure, but now I'm sure. I think Almeida, Jalton Almeida, I think that's how you say his name. I think John Jones is gonna have some serious problem with that dude. I think the whole heavyweight division is gonna have some serious problems with that dude. I think it's a matter of time before he's the heavyweight champion. But it ain't even just him. You got a lot of other guys that are really good too. You got a lot of really good guys in the heavyweight division right now. Like I said, this is the best the heavyweight division has ever been in the UFC that I'm aware of. And this is the time that Francis Ngannou decides to leave. We really don't know what John Jones is going to do. He might take one more fight against Stipe, who's really not even relevant to me in the heavyweight division at this point. That's more of a legacy fight. So, if you ask me, the best thing is for Francis Ngannou to come back to the UFC, make the biggest fight that could possibly be made between him and John Jones. That would be the biggest fight in UFC history. That's what needs to happen. Otherwise, I just really don't see this boxing thing working out for Francis Ngannou. Not right. The timing is just not right. This was bad timing. And the other thing he has to realize is that the only reason he can even contemplate boxing on that level is because he was the UFC champion. If he was not the UFC champion, nobody wouldn't even give a crap about Francis Ngannou. He wouldn't get anything. So he has to realize that. So he may, I really feel that Dana White, the UFC need to put their egos to the side because they need Francis Ngannou, to be honest. And Francis Ngannou needs to put his ego to the side because he needs them. Make the John Jones fight the biggest fight in the history of MMA. I don't think it'll be a long time before we'll be able to top Francis Ngannou and John Jones. Now, on to the rest of the PFL deal. The next thing I heard was that they're going to pay Francis Ngannou's opponents $2 million to fight him. So if they're paying his opponents $2 million, we can assume that Francis Ngannou is making anywhere between $4 to $5 million a fight. There is no way the PFL can sustain that. No way. No way they can pull that shit off. Not the Francis Ngannou salary, or his opponent's salary. There's no way. But okay, before then, here's the other thing. Francis Ngannou doesn't have to participate in the tournament, which also is not fair. Why is it that he, just coming into the PFL, shouldn't have to participate in the tournament, and he can just fight on pay-per-view? So they're already altering the rules for Francis Ngannou, which hurts the credibility of PFL. So it's no way. Oh, let me not forget. Oh yeah, they're gonna give him an equity stake in PFL Africa. Man, what the fuck is What is PFL Africa? Come on, y'all. Come on. If Francis Ngannou is believing this, man, he's even dumber than I thought he was. PFL Africa, okay. I would love to see what they get out of PFL Africa. But okay, so PFL Africa, he's going to have say in the fighters, I guess their pay or whatever. And this is the thing. Fighting, when you're a fighter, the only salary you need to worry about is your own salary. The only benefits you need to worry about are your own benefits. These other fighters have their own managers, their own trainers, agents, whatever. You need to worry about yourself. And that's his problem. He wants to be worried about all the other fighters. Now, if he retired from MMA and wanted to do that, it would be one thing. But if you're still an active fighter, you need to be worried about yourself. So all of that shit that I've heard from that PFL deal is a bunch of hogwash. There's no way that an organization that doesn't make any money, really, that doesn't have any ratings, Dana White said this too, and I will give him credit for that, is going to be able to pull something like this off. There is no way. The UFC can barely pull something like that off, and they have pay-per-views every month. They're making money. They have events every month. They're making money. The UFC is the only viable MMA organization out there. That's it. Bellator is trash. If Bellator didn't have Showtime backing them, they would be dead and gone. They wouldn't be around anymore. And they really don't even have any fighters that the UFC wants. I think maybe one or two they might grab, but they don't even have any fighters. One is pretty decent, but it's like I don't really give a shit about all of the other stuff that one wants to throw kickboxing and grappling match. I don't care about all that stuff. I care about MMA and boxing. If they want to do boxing and MMA, I'm cool. But all the other stuff, I'm not with it. I don't think their model is going to work in the U.S., to be honest. So I love PFL's model. I love their season model. But the thing is, too much time goes by where we don't see fights. Oh, and not to even mention, I didn't even mention this. PFL lost 9 fighters from the last season. 9 fighters came up out on the piss test. 9 fighters came up out on the piss test. And most of these were UFC, a few of them were UFC rejects that would at least allow us to know who the hell they are so we could have some type of a reference to how important the fight is. Because otherwise, we don't know these people. We don't know any of these PFL fighters. Now, that could change as time goes on. And I really hope PFL is successful. But they're going to have to start having multiple seasons because I feel just too much time goes past where they don't have fights on. And I don't think that's going to work. It doesn't work for Bellator either, by the way. You know, the UFC is the only organization that has fights on a regular basis and are making money from showing fights. So now this brings me to another point, something very, very important. Because DC said now this MMA feels like a real sport. Nah, see, this is the problem. MMA can't be a real sport with the current setup. See, unfortunately, MMA has followed pro wrestling's model. And it has worked out really well for the UFC, but it ain't working out well for any of the other promotions. Because that's basically what you have. You have a bunch of MMA promotions. That doesn't work if MMA wants to be seen as a real sport. You got to have MMA promoters. And all of the fighters have to be able to fight all of the fighters. That's the way boxing works. Any fighter can fight any fighter. Where the way it is right now, you know, the UFC has their champions, Bellator has their champions, ONE has their champions, PFL has their champions, and they're all separate. They can't fight each other. That's not how boxing is. That's why boxing is seen as a real sport. And as long as MMA is keep it in its promotional state, it's going to be hard to see them as a sport on par with boxing. Like I said, for that to happen, the promotions would have to disappear, and it would just be MMA promoters, and basically any fighter from any organization would be able to fight each other. You know, now the UFC would obviously be the biggest promoter by far. So to be honest, the only way I could even really see that happening is for UFC to become all of MMA. Everything will have to go through the UFC. There would be no other promotions. There could be other promoters who could promote with the UFC, but the UFC will have to become MMA in order for MMA to really get to that level of boxing. That's the only, it can't work with it the way it is right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, the UFC can still make mega money, but the MMA is not going to be seen on the level of the NFL or the NBA or anything like that until they make it an actual sport. You know what I'm saying? So that's my take on all of this, man. This PFL deal is hogwash. That shit is not sustainable. No fucking way that any of this shit from the boxing part of it, none of it makes any sense. There's no way they can pull that off. Unless they're going to be paying the other fighters like $100 to fight. You know what I'm saying? There's no way that this can... Francis Ngannou, like I said, should swallow his pride, come back to the UFC. The UFC needs to swallow their pride, pay these fighters their money, pay them both $8 million, and let us have the biggest fight in all of MMA. Then if Francis wins that fight, that might put him in a better position to go out there and find a boxing partner. You know what I'm saying? It might put him in... Let's be real. The last time Francis Ngannou fought was... he fought Cyril Gahn, and he didn't even fucking box him. He wrestled him like the whole fight, the last half of the fight. So why he would do that and then think he's going to go out and get... Yeah. Yeah. My advice to Francis, if you really want to be taken seriously as a boxer, don't wrestle your UFC opponents. Knock them out. And lastly, I just want to give my take on who would win a fight if John Jones and Tyson Fury were locked in a room in a fight. Not a MMA competition, not a boxing competition, but a fight. I personally believe that these alpha males, these two tools of human destruction, I honestly believe if they were locked in a room, I don't think either fighter would make it out alive. I personally don't believe either fighter would make it out alive. Or if one fighter did make it out, They will walk about 5 steps, drop down dead. Or maybe last 1 or 2 days and then die from injuries in a hospital. I believe if these two alpha males went at each other, I believe they would eviscerate each other. Everybody want to talk about, oh, John Jones will just take him down. Okay, we're talking about a fight. Now, a fight, a real fight. Okay, when John Jones goes to take Tyson Fury down, now Tyson Fury's a big-ass man, by the way. Might not be so easy to get down. But let's say John Jones gets him down and Tyson Fury bites a chunk out of his jugular on the way down. That's what happens in a real fight. I guarantee you, eyeballs will be poked out, teeth will be knocked out. These two guys will probably destroy each other. That's the level that they're on. This we're talking about a fight, not a competition. So Joe Rogan is also a fucking idiot. I love him, but he says some dumb shit from time to time. So to say that John Jones would destroy Tyson Fury in a fight is pretty stupid. It means he must not know much about real fighting. Maybe he's just been around the competition for too long. In a real fight, anything goes. Anything can happen. You know, like I said, people poke eyes out. People, you know, fighting is ugly. A real fight. That's why MMA is a competition and not real fighting. Even when it first started, it wasn't real fighting. It was close to it, but they still had some rules. You know, you couldn't eye gouge. You couldn't. I think you couldn't bite. You couldn't bite. And you couldn't eye gouge. Was how it first started. In a real fight, you can bite and you can eye gouge. You can do whatever you want. You can pick up something and bust somebody's head open with it. That's what happens in a real fight. So in a real fight, I just don't think either one of them would survive it. Now, if somebody forced me to put my money on one of them, I would probably put my money on Tyson Fury. Only because I believe Tyson Fury is a better boxer than Jones is an MMA fighter. Now, some of y'all be like, what are you talking about? Jones just destroyed Cyril Gane. Yeah, he beat the worst wrestler in the heavyweight division. Let's see what he can do with Jalton Almeida. You know, another wrestler, or a Tom Aspinall, or Curtis Blades. You know, if he folds them up that way, then I'll be impressed. But, you know, and then let's talk about the fights he had even before he went to heavyweight. Against Thiago Silva and Dominic Reyes. Those fights didn't look too good to me. So, in fact, we could even say that him beating Cyril Gane was somewhat flukish. That was a flukish type of fight. I don't think that's going to happen again in his next heavyweight fight. I really don't. Who knows? This is fighting, you never know. But whereas when Tyson Fury fights, it's never a fluke. It's never a fluke when he fights. So, and the fact he's just a bigger man. He's a big, strong, tough man. So if I had to put my money on somebody, it would be Tyson Fury. But with that said, like I said, he probably wouldn't survive the fight either, even if he walked out the room. So that's my take on John Jones fighting Tyson Fury in a fight if they were both locked in a room. Anyway, y'all, thank y'all for watching the video. Thank y'all for listening to my ramblings for yet another time. Please like the video. Please leave your thoughts and comments and let me address this. Because for some fucking reason, whenever I say this, here come the trolls. And not all of y'all. I'm not talking to all of y'all. But I always get a troll or two who wants to come out and be like, hey, you said you could say anything. No, I'm not talking to y'all fucking trolls. Y'all go be lifeless somewhere else. Stay the fuck off my channel. I'm talking to regular people who not trolls. I don't care if you disagree with me, but if your disagreement starts with the insult, I consider you a troll. You can disagree with me without being a fucking asshole. So that's what I mean by leave your comments. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm telling y'all, I got a book I'm working on. Just so y'all know, let me show y'all this. That's my new tattoo. I got a book I'm working on, and so I really haven't been making a lot of videos. But my book should be out next month, and I can get back to it. The videos, I'm gonna keep this channel more about UFC. I'll put my other videos somewhere else. But anyway, y'all, thank y'all for watching. I love y'all. This is MDP. Peace.